Joe Mucheru to speak to me. We have a lot of issues to talk about, but before then, let's get this out of the way, CS. Are you one of the cabinet secretaries who were not revetted and who have been taken to court now?
Yes, I was there in the first term.
Yes.
But I was vetted. I was vetted for this position. I went to Parliament. I was sworn in. So I'm not sure I understand what they're talking about.
Okay.
But this hiring and this whole process is currently above my pay grade. So let me not
comment about it.
Let me not comment. I'm not the Attorney General. I'm not the President. And so for me, it's really to work and deliver for Kenyans. All right.
The issue is in court. Let's see what happens. The President is away. All right, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission could see their election data and transmission servers hosted in the country if the data regulations proposed by the Ministry of Information and Communication Technology sails through, subject, of course, to the public participation. And part of the regulation set out is that any data controller or processing entity shall be required to ensure that a server and data center is located right here in the country, and this shall apply in the conduct of elections in the country. Very interesting. Now, the regulations are currently undergoing public participation, and we'll talk about that. But first, let's set the stage with this.
Servers in Europe, we are not refusing to give access. Europe is a couple of hours behind us. We had to wait for them to start working. They have to set up the access window with safeguards.
Of course, for me, that could be the genesis, but the ICT CS, who is in charge of this, is here to tell us what's this about. And CS, is this the mischief this is trying to address?
Thank you, Ken, and thank you for the invitation to come and speak. So I think, first, I don't believe there's any mischief. The Constitution, I think Article 31, says that we must secure people's data. Kenya has now become, a data-driven society. People, either whether it is for finance, whether it is for their communication, whatever it is, now we are using data a lot of the times. And the Constitution said that we must protect people's data.
Okay.
So this law, which has been passed by Parliament, is what we are now enacting and coming out with the regulations.
Okay.
So it was not in response to the elections, it's not in response to just IEBC, it's in response to many questions that Kenyans have been asking. I visit a shop somewhere, before even I've gone to my car, I start getting SMSs with offers.
Okay.
People talking about their data being sold. We must protect people's data.
Okay.
Data is very important, and that is why we have this law and the regulations that we're working on. It's not about elections.
But you agree with me, there's nothing fundamentally wrong, even if it was to address that?
No, it will address that. So the first thing is we must protect citizens' data. That is very, very important. And the way we do that is ensure that there are people who actually collect this data, so there are people who process this data, and who do a lot of things with this information. We must control what they do with that.
Okay.
When you go and you're entering into a building and you put in your name, your phone number, your ID, how do you know how that data is being processed? Why should that building continue to keep your data and your information in that book after you've left?
Yes.
Why is it being used? And people can use it for all manner of things. They can use it to open an account, create an account for you. Why should a credit reference bureau continue to keep data when you have cleared your loans and everything is gone? So there are many new things that have come in that require data, that require for us to ensure your data is protected, as well as, when you talk even at IEBC, the data that is there is your data. How is it handled and how is it managed?
I'd like to talk about that extensively.
Yes.
But before I go to that, why are we not talking about enabling legislations for the Access to Information Act, for example? Why are we, for me, it's jumping the gun. Why are we going ahead and yet we have not operationalized the Access to Information Act?
So we're not jumping the gun. In fact, the wisdom of Parliament put that law under the CAJ. So the ombudsman is the one who is actually supposed to be coming out with those regulations. If you read the law very clearly,
yes,
the role of the Minister of ICT is to approve, to get those laws approved and to go report to Parliament. So it's not the responsibility that we have.
Okay.
But let me say that that is something that is already in process. It's already gone through public participation. We expect that that will also be done shortly.
Okay.
So it's not independent. They're being done all together.
All right, very interesting. I'd like to talk about that, but at this point, if you are watching through KTN Home, we'll give you a few seconds to switch to KTN News because our discussion with CS Mucheru continues in a moment. All right, CS, now let's talk about the nitty-gritties, the fine print of this law. Let's forget about what you're doing with the public participation and the benefits, because to me, I read violations of people's rights when the law you are proposing also creates positions that gives them autonomy and puts them under the Ministry of Interior, for example. And my thinking is that there are positions that should not even reside in the Ministry of Interior, because, as you say, the government is interested in protecting, but the government is the biggest also violator of citizens' rights.
I'm not sure I get what positions have been put under the Ministry of
For
Interior.
example, the Commission of Data. For me, that's where...
The Data Commissioner is under the Ministry of ICT.
Exactly.
And is appointed by the President.
Yes.
But so therefore, the responsibility of that Data Commissioner is through the President. They're appointed by the same authority as me.
Okay.
Not the Ministry of Interior.
So,
Ministry of Interior has the computer misuse and cybercrime law, not the data.
Not the data.
Protection.
Now, my point is this, because the violations, once the violations happen, who would you expect to address them?
Which violations? So this data, or this law, first of all, is to protect the individual's data.
Exactly.
It's both government and private sector that hold this data. So you've got the data handlers. So if you go, for instance, and register at a bank, you open an account, a bank is going to hold your data. If you go and register with government and you get your Huduma number or you get your ID, that data is with the government.
Exactly.
You go to a mobile operator, that data is with the mobile operator. This law covers all of them, including the people in buildings, whoever it is that will handle your personal data.
Exactly.
And Data Commissioner is the one that now, in these regulations, has the right to deal with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for me, that position should be domiciled where he can deal with issues arising out of it. I'll give you an example of violation because we want to get it out of the way before we look at the fine print of this.
Yes.
If, for example, what happened over the weekend, there was a documentary on a TV station, and the Ministry of Interior through the DCI, or the DCI through the Ministry of Interior, needs the data for the lady who did this documentary. I mean, they will just order, if it resides within government, government holds the citizens' data, right? It's just so easy to ask ICT to give us this data for this girl who did that. So that's a violation. How do we protect Kenyans first?
I think, again, maybe it is not clear.
Yes.
These regulations don't hold the data.
Okay.
The data will continue to be held. If, say, that station has the data, if your station has it, you're the one holding. But the regulator is going to be the Data Commissioner.
Okay.
So the Data Commissioner will authorize you to get that data, or authorize whoever, the courts, whoever it is that needs that data will provide that authority. But actually, the law itself and the regulations we're putting in place are the ones that will state how that data is held, how it is then processed, who can do that, what are the regulations and laws. So that if you go against those regulations and laws, then now you can be taken to court, you can be fined, and so on and so forth.
So the primary
it's not government is not holding the data.
All right.
In this case you're talking about, the station is the one holding the data.
Okay.
And that data is not regulated right now by the Data Commissioner.
Yes.
This is a documentary. It's not personally identifiable information. Here we're protecting individuals' data and individuals' information.
Yeah, like this girl, she's an individual. Let me say the investigations begin.
So it's not that she's an individual. The station is the one that aired that documentary. They are being asked.
She's the one who.
They are being asked for information about that documentary. They're not being asked just about her.
Okay.
You see, so she did work for the station.
So it's
and that's
station.
why they're asking for that information.
Vicarious
if you have said that there is a crime that's being committed and you have information, surely you should present that to DCI.
Okay.
And DCI has not arrested anybody. They've said, come to us and give us this information.
Okay.
What is wrong with that? Government is saying, come to us. If you're saying we have that much strength, they would have gone and got it from Citizen, isn't it?
Okay. But as it stands, can the government get an individual's data without their consent? Are those some of the things you're trying to protect?
Those are the things that you now go to court. The laws are so clear on how you get data. If there is a crime, if somebody has been kidnapped, for instance, you know, there are different levels of data that is required. If you are sick and you've gone to a hospital, maybe you're in a coma, can the doctor be able to access data about your health? Of course, they should be able to access. So there are different conditions at which data is required. If you've gone and asked for a loan, the bank should be able to know from a credit reference bureau whether you are credible or not. Yeah. If Mucheru cannot pay loans, he's already taken others and hasn't paid, the bank has the right to find out about me. So if you've gone and applied, then one of the things the bank will ask you is to give them authority to get your data from the Credit Reference Bureau.
Actually, I've gone through that a lot. They never ask. I just find my credit reference.
No, you don't read the fine print. In the fine print, that's a requirement. But we have not had those regulations. Yeah. Now we are putting them into force.
Okay.
And because we are, now they will be asking, you will have the right to opt out. If, for instance, you don't want your data given, then the Credit Reference Bureau can delete your details, but it's you now that has to find out how you will get a loan if you're not providing your credit data. But you have to give them authority. This is the power that we're giving to Kenyans.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm looking at the Act, and I'm looking at sections 5 and 51 and 54. I'm really interested in 54. I just need to ask you an additional question before we go to the fine print.
Yes.
And my thinking and my reading of that section is that the data commissioner could be able to breach or violate private data when need arises. I'm concerned because we're doing this for Kenyans, and the concern of Kenyans is how protected are we even from our own government? You remember what happened in the US with Google, for example. How protected are we from our own government? Can the government violate this at will through that data commissioner or something? And also remember the Huduma case also. So that's my concern. Then I'll just go to the fine print.
When you say breach, I think, as I have said,
without an individual's consent.
So the first thing that is happening right now, we have published the regulations so that Kenyans, all of them, can read the regulations and say they agree here, they don't agree here, and so on and so forth.
And you will revise where they don't agree.
But of course we will do that.
Okay, nice.
But it depends also how many things are said. So, for instance, we have to come up and say, how long should your data be stored, for instance, in a credit reference bureau? If you've paid all your loans, should you be there? Should they still have your data showing that you defaulted?
Okay.
It's up to you to decide. If, for instance, we've got different, say, internet platforms, there's a picture of you that was taken that is very inappropriate. Is there a right for that picture to remain on that platform throughout?
Yes.
If it's personally identifiable, all these rules are what we're putting together. Okay. And we're asking citizens, come back and look at it and tell us.
Right.
And remember, for us to get the Act and the law in place, not only did we as a ministry get the task force and go out and talk to everybody and actually get the data and get their feedback, also Parliament did the same. And eventually we got now the Data Protection Act. Okay. Now we have a Data Protection Commissioner, Immaculate Kasait. And we are now putting the regulations so that people can follow. So this is not something the government is forcing on people. We are working together to make sure that it is working. Okay. We were asked very many questions on Huduma number. How sure are you that this data will be protected? Yes. How sure that this data will not be deleted? That is why we have the Office of the Data Commissioner, so that they can provide that assurance, and it's not just within government. They put the regulations and they will ensure that this data is protected. The courts are there to adjudicate and say whether we are following the rules or not. But Kenyans need to know how their data is protected. You shouldn't just walk into a building or, you buy something somewhere, you give your details, next minute everybody is advertising using your number. Okay.
I think CS, this is very important, and this is the reason why that mass public participation is necessary. So the last question, and I've asked you this previously, among the first questions, didn't you think that that office for it to do all these things to protect the citizens, we need to give it more power and put it under Interior as opposed to your ministry. Do you think that could have given them more power, or is the same because it's the same?
No, I think also there you're not. The data commissioner has all the powers they need. Interior has information. In fact, where all the IDs, birth certificates, Huduma number, they're all in Interior. So if Interior is also the one that is regulating, then you're asking...
Well explained now.
Then you're saying that they're going to be jury, judge, everything.
Everything. So you need someone who can control them on the other side.
She's not even reporting to me. She's been appointed by the president.
Yes, but under your ministry.
But she has to be resourced somewhere.
Okay.
And we have a lot of access to information. We have many things that we do. We have the technologies to give her the tools and resources that she needs to be able to do her work.
All right.
So that is why we want to at least ensure she's in a place where she can be able to perform her duties.
Well said.
Yes.
One of the most interesting things about this, and for me, this is important because it's a subject of discourse. In fact, I think a lot of people have looked at this act, but a lot of people are more interested in the data being stored in Kenya, and that even the data processors and all, it's very important and integral to Kenyans. Now, explain to me that, because away from the politics, is there also mischief that we have to put it in law that all this data that you're collecting must be within the country?
Ken, Kenyans sometimes are very interesting. When they say that the servers of IBC were outside Kenya, they all said all these servers should be in Kenya. Yes. Now that the law is saying that that data should be in Kenya, they're all saying, hey, they should be allowed to have it outside. Yes. Okay, the truth is this. The citizen data is sovereign to Kenya. The IDs, for instance, your passport data, even your health data, why should it be stored outside Kenya? Such that Uganda, for instance, can block Kenya from accessing your data. It should be stored in Kenya. Okay. But if you read the law completely, you will see that companies have the option to store the data even outside of Kenya. There's nothing that stops them from storing it outside of Kenya. But what we are saying is that we must have a copy of that data here. Okay, so for instance, Kenya Airways, if they're going to offer tickets, that data will even be required in whichever destination. If you're going to India, Indians will need your personal data out there. So we are not saying that no data, the Kenyan data can be outside there. Okay. But we're saying if, for instance, you have your bank account and the bank opens a branch in, say, Uganda, Tanzania, wherever it is in the world, the same protection of data that you have here in Kenya must be the same in those countries. So we will, as government and through the data commissioner, approve for data to be stored outside of Kenya if it will have the same safeguards that you have here in Kenya. But we're not saying that it must only be in Kenya. Yes. But there is actually no mischief. We as a country want to develop. We're moving into the 21st century, fourth industrial revolution. Data, knowledge is the new gold. We must protect it. Today, everybody gives their data to the Facebooks and Googles and all these other platforms, and then they complain to us that those people are sharing the data they're doing and so on, and they're making billions. We have to have laws and regulations that allow even businesses here to commercialize this data with your permission, so that they can also build big businesses. All right. So there's no mischief other than wanting to grow this economy, this country, with ensuring people are protected. Okay, you're not a politician, but I'll ask you that question. Yes. The proposal that you're talking about reads that a data controller or data processor who processes personal data for purpose of actualizing a public good setup should be also given a copy. So you've told us that. But talk to me, something happened, you're an IT guy, something happened about 2 weeks ago. The LinkedIn data that was stolen and was being sold. So you've just spoken about the Facebooks, the IGs and all that. So how would you ensure, for example, that something hosted outside, that Kenyans' data are protected, or once you cede that responsibility and give it to someone else, it doesn't matter what someone else does with it, or are you as a ministry also protecting Kenyans against such? So our aim is to make sure we protect Kenyans. And the thing is, data that is stored on these over-the-top platforms, as they are called, the IGs, the Facebooks, and so on.
Over the top, yes.
You actually go there and you tick and you say, I'm giving you permission to do all these things with my data.
Yes.
So if they go and they sell your data and so on, you've actually ticked and allowed it. But we're saying anyone in Kenya that is involved in processing of data, data handlers, whoever it is, they have to follow the law and allow you to opt in or opt out in situations where that data is to be used.
Okay, but they shall have had it.
But it's you who has given and approved.
Yes. But
we're also putting conditions on how that data is stored, processed, and how we can audit.
All right.
Actually, if people don't store it in the correct way, they, for instance, you go into a building and they're writing your name this way. You can always read who was the other person that came before you.
While you're writing.
But we're saying we don't want that to be done. Even you go to maybe some of these mobile money agents, you will see there who was the person before you and how much they transacted. Yeah. We're saying all that must stop.
Okay.
So we're putting the rules and regulations, and we're telling Kenyans, please, read these regulations, give us your input. They are good for you, they will protect you, and they will ensure that where we need to commercialize, and I worked for Google. It helps a lot of people when you put your information on Google so that you can be able to find directions. And you've allowed them to know where you are so that they can tell you where you want to go. It's a service that you enjoy that will actually make life better. Okay. You're allowing Glovo and other companies to bring goods to your home. So you've approved for them to know where you live because they're giving you a service. This is all things that you're commercializing and moving. Right. But if the law is not clear, then many of these businesses may not succeed. And so we are saying you opt in, and they allow you to, and they will give you these ones, and you can be deleted.
Yes, I already see your legacy at the ministry right there when this really work. Yeah. But I have to ask you a supplementary question on that.
Right.
The concern when you announce this, and as I told you, the act is out, but most Kenyans are concerned with the election. You know how it's divisive. Yes. How do you draw the line between politics? Because now we're headed into the 2022. You're a technocrat, but I still want to know that concern. How do you address it? Like Kenyans are thinking, oh, now they want this data here, because last time it was in France, we couldn't access it, so we couldn't manipulate it. Now the ministry is ensuring this data is here, that if there's a problem, we can manipulate it, because you agree with me, to date, no one has opened the servers of Otimorpho in France.
So I don't agree with you there.
Okay, tell me.
So the first thing is that I'm not IBC, and so I shouldn't speak for them. But I'll say, because I followed this obviously very closely,
yes,
the data was made available. They got access to the data. But they wanted more than access to the data.
They wanted more than read-only
They wanted to even write. You know, when you go and you check even online your bank statement, it shows you your statement.
The PDF.
So you have access to the statement. You can see what your balance is. But why would you ask for access to write, to see how the balance is seated? So that you can go change there that now Ken has $1 billion, and it's now the job of the bank to prove that you didn't have $1 billion, but you had access to change. They have access. Access was provided. The actual results were given to Kenyans. They were being transmitted everywhere. That's what is in the server.
I have a bite from the CJ admitting it wasn't open.
Who?
The CJ.
The CJ annulled the election because he said that the data wasn't available. Yet the truth was in the ballot boxes. No, they could have gone to the ballot boxes to compare if the data being shown is the same. The same way with your bank slips. You know how much you deposited. You can check with your statement as to whether what is in the bank is the same. But they wanted now someone to go in and see and change the results.
What was the difficulty with just granting that access to clear this debate? Because that's still the debate.
Are you telling me, Ken, if you are running a bank, you will allow people to go change their balances in the account because you're giving them access?
That was the
Everybody was allowed to see the results.
Yes.
They wanted to go beyond seeing the results. They wanted to write the results. And that one I don't believe as a country we should ever allow.
Okay, and we should go there.
Yes.
Well explained, but this is a debate that I will win with politicians, not a technocrat.
It is going to be politicized all you want, but the truth is
so that's not what another mischief that probably...
I don't know why people read mischief into these things.
This is Kenya. You are Kenyan. You live in Kenya.
We have moved leaps and bounds in technology. I mean, we were able to see through IBC the transmitted results, we got actually results. Okay. And then, I mean, we are not, as government, HE's term is coming to an end, and we'll have a new government. So who is this that is actually creating this mischief and this law? This law is for everybody.
Okay.
Who is this? It's being created for who?
Okay. Presidents would want to always stay in power through another person. Anyway, it's a debate I will never win.
No,
as a technocrat. I think we're done with the data, but I just want to know, there's a Kenyan, when we said you're coming to studio, there's a Kenyan who asked me on Twitter to ask you, when do you think we can actualize things like voting digitally?
You know, again, we come back to this politics. It's an IEBC decision on how that can be done in terms of the procurement of technology, the laws that are being set. But that can be done even today.
Okay.
One of the things I'm working on is for the National Youth Council. They want to have elections. And because of the current pandemic that we're having, we're saying they can actually have digital elections. The same way today you can vote in all these AGMs of companies. You go on your mobile phone, you register, and you're able to pick the subject and vote for them. That can be done. Okay. We've been doing the same with the mobile money.
So it can be done. It's just upon the IBC to ask.
It's IBC and Parliament to ensure that the laws allow for these things to happen, and also for Kenyans to trust that those results are the results.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask you also about the Google balloons.
Yes.
Where are they? Are they working?
Google pulled out of that
because it was the main financier to this.
It was their project.
Yes.
So they pulled out and they said that it's become unmanageable. I think the wind patterns and other things changed, and so they ended up not continuing with that project.
Okay.
But they supported us. I think they gave us about 1.5 billion, towards the infrastructure, towards small businesses. But again, that was a private business determining their direction as we continue with the Universal Service Fund to ensure that people are getting the connectivity. As you saw, we've even launched 5G in the country, and that is expanding. So Kenya continues.
Okay.
We are still top in terms of speeds of internet.
Was this part of your baby while you worked for Google?
It's one of the things we were pushing.
It's one of the things you were pushing?
Yes. Okay. Many things we're pushing, but...
Were you disappointed when they pulled out?
Of
because
course.
Now you're in government and you oversaw it even when you were at Google.
I was.
You were disappointed.
But again, it's private sector, it's their choice, it's how they're investing. Okay. Who knows, maybe Kenya will actually develop this. We've got some really brilliant young men and women who are innovating amazingly. And maybe it's going to be Kenya's chance to create our own Google and build our own balloons.
I'm looking forward. CSR, I have to let you go, but your parting shot, because Kenyans have now, I have understood it personally, why we need to participate in this process. Right. I know what we're being given. But your parting shot in terms of what do you know about this project and that act that Kenyans don't know, that you'd want them to know tonight?
That Kenyans should read this act and the laws and the regulations and understand there is huge business opportunities. These companies that need to comply with these regulations, who is going to go train them? Who is going to show them what they need to? So there are going to be consultants and advisors that are going to go and help those companies set up. Who's going to automate those books that people try to fill in when you're going into buildings, so that now you can go in using your Huduma number, you can be seen, and they don't have to even record. It's during a time of pandemic, so they don't have to. So there are many, many huge business opportunities that this law is providing for Kenyans. Okay. And Kenyans should see it as an opportunity. One, to protect their data. And even when your data is protected, it means when you go to a hospital, if you have access to that data, you can be treated and dealt with very quickly. When you're coming for services, the same thing. That's why we're putting in things like Huduma number. Government is digitizing, and we're making sure that quality of services, efficiency of services is happening. Participate and be part of it. Build a business empire from it. The Googles, Facebooks, and all the others were built in this same way.
Okay.
Alibaba and so on. So why shouldn't Kenyans take advantage? Forget the naysayers and all these people that are reading mischief. Take advantage and build.
Okay. I want to hold you to account.
Yes.
You're big in the protection of individual and institutional data, period.
That is paramount. If you don't do that, you fail. I
hope we'll not come back to talk about leaked data, stolen data, sold data of individuals and corporations.
Yes, but those are people that then they will even either be fined or jailed for doing those things.
But it shall have been stolen.
You know, even right now, people steal even from banks and from everywhere else.
Okay.
But those criminals will be found and they'll be dealt with. The good thing with technology is that it leaves a trail.
Okay.
It leaves a record. And
Footprint.
we can know who did what.
Yes.
Unlike in the offline world, this one, wasijaribu.
Okay.
There's sufficient data to deal with.
CS, thank you very much. And
Asante.
what you're saying, I know of a building that when you go in, you scan your ID using a phone, and the data is stored in the phone. It's not about writing. So I think there are people going that direction.
Excellent.
Also,
They should sell that and make money,
yeah.
and automate the whole country. That efficiency becomes very good.
As I told you, I'm already seeing your legacy. Thanks, Waziri, for coming.
Much
Asante sana. Straight after this, we are going to speak to lawyer Steve Ogola. We have also Willis Otieno, and of course, we will be speaking to Simon Cherargei, who is a senator for Nandi County. Among the things we want to talk about is that divorce papers are ready for Jubilee. And of course, I want to talk about what we couldn't talk about, the jobless CSs, and of course, the CSs who are not vetted, CSs and the CSs who are not vetted. And I'd like them also to touch on securing the public data and institutional, how important this is. We are back in a moment, and thanks so much, Waziri, for coming.
Asante, much appreciated.